All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into the mind of the one and only Katt Williams.
Oh, yeah.
We got our hands on a pretty recent interview he did with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay. And
Club Shay Shay, that's a good one.
yeah, and let me tell you, it is a wild ride. You know, Katt's known for keeping it real, for speaking his mind, and he does not disappoint here.
No, he does not.
He's got some scores to settle, some truth bombs to drop, and a whole lot to say about comedy today.
He does, and it's interesting because I think what really struck me was Katt's coming in with a purpose. You know, he's not promoting anything. He's really there to address what he sees as just straight up lies being spread about him. And he names names. You know, he calls out Ricky Smiley.
Yeah.
Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah, he goes right at Ricky Smiley.
Right off the bat.
I mean, I think that was maybe even the first thing he brought up.
For sure, yeah.
You know, and it's this whole thing about, you know, Smiley had claimed that he almost got the role of Money Mike in Friday After Next. You know, the role that really kind of put Katt on the map.
That's the one, yeah.
And Katt's like, hold up, wait a minute, that's just not true. And he goes into this whole breakdown of how he created that character, the wardrobe, the lines, the whole persona, you know?
From the ground up.
Like it was his baby.
Totally. And, you know, and it is about setting the record straight, but I feel like there's something deeper there for Katt.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not just about this one role, you know.
Yeah.
You really get the sense that he sees the comedy world as this very intense competition.
Like a sport?
Like a sport, exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about how he's analyzed hundreds of comedian sets, counting their laughs,
wow,
quantifying it, and basically ranking himself against them.
That's wild.
It's incredible.
It's like he's approaching stand-up with the mindset of a pro athlete studying game film, you know?
Exactly, like watching the tape.
What do you think that says about the pressure of the comedy world, especially now with the internet and everything being out there?
I mean, it really highlights the constant need to innovate, to stay ahead of the game, you know?
Yeah.
Katt talks about how comedians can't just rely on the same material anymore, you know, because it gets posted online so quickly.
Right.
They have to constantly be creating, keep evolving. And it seems like for Katt, that drive to be on top, it's a big part of what fuels him.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know?
And you can see how that ties into his beef with Cedric the Entertainer.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, Katt claims that Cedric basically stole a joke that he had been doing for years, even a joke that ended up in a Comic View promo.
Right. And while Cedric might dispute the timeline and the specifics,
right,
for Katt, it's a clear example of someone trying to take a shortcut to benefit from his hard work.
Yeah. And
it speaks to a larger point that he makes throughout the interview.
Yeah.
About originality and authenticity in comedy.
Right. It's not just about jokes.
Yeah.
He's talking about truth-telling in general.
Absolutely.
Calling out hypocrisy in the entertainment industry and beyond. I mean, he even brings up Kevin Hart at one point, suggesting that Hart presents this very polished, maybe even inauthentic image.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Katt seems to really value this rawness.
Yeah.
This willingness to be vulnerable and expose, you know, the darker sides of things.
Right.
Even if it makes people uncomfortable. You know, he contrasts that with comedians who he feels are playing it safe or trying to maintain a certain image.
Yeah, and that makes his run-in with Wanda Sykes even more fascinating, you know, where she kind of blindsides him during this Emmy interview.
Yeah.
And it leads to this really heated exchange on air.
On air.
And you can tell it still bothers him, even years later.
It seems to tap into this sense of betrayal, you know?
Yeah.
Like he felt attacked by someone he thought was on his side.
Yeah.
And maybe it reinforced his belief that you can't trust everyone in this industry. That people are often more concerned with their own image than genuine connection.
Yeah.
You know?
But, you know, it's not all feuds and conflicts.
No, not at all.
Katt also talks about his personal life, his dedication to his kids, both biological and adopted.
Hmm.
He even mentions helping other people financially. Like he funded Melora Hardin's Hollywood Walk of Fame star.
Yeah, there's a real generosity there that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
He talks about helping struggling comedians and even, trying to help women that he meets in strip clubs find a way out of the industry.
Wow. So it's like he has this tough exterior, but underneath there's a lot of compassion
Yeah,
and a desire to use his success to uplift others.
definitely.
But of course, there's also, the elephant in the room, which is his run-ins with the law.
Hmm.
He doesn't go into detail, but he frames it as self-defense and a refusal to back down from authority.
It seems very much in line with his personality.
Right.
You get the sense that he sees himself as a fighter.
Yeah.
Someone who's always, pushing back against the system.
Yeah.
It's almost like he sees his whole life, both, on and off stage, as a challenge to societal norms and expectations.
So where did this all begin?
Right.
How did Katt Williams become the Katt Williams we know today?
Yeah.
To answer that, we need to go back to his childhood in Dayton, Ohio.
Back to the beginning.
A story that's just as surprising and unconventional as the man himself.
What's fascinating is that Katt's path to comedy was anything but traditional.
Yeah.
He didn't come up through open mics or comedy clubs like a lot of comedians do.
Yeah.
He found his voice in a very different way.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Katt describes his childhood as being, and I'm quoting here, crunk.
Okay.
He was performing from a very young age, like we're talking delivering sermons in front of huge crowds when he was just 5 years old.
Wow, talk about natural stage presence.
I know, right?
Oh,
5 years old.
And his curiosity, that's something he talks about a lot. He was a voracious reader, even claiming to have read, get this, the entire encyclopedia set by the time he was 7. Okay, now that's impressive.
Right.
I mean, you can definitely see how that thirst for knowledge comes through in his comedy.
For sure.
He's constantly referencing history, politics, all kinds of things.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not just surface level humor, you know?
No, not at all.
And what's interesting is he didn't go the traditional route of school plays or talent shows,
Right.
He went straight to performing for real audiences, starting in Florida and then moving to Sacramento, a city with a more diverse population.
Interesting.
He talks about how he was actually funnier with white audiences early on, and that motivated him to refine his material until he was killing it with everyone.
That's a really good point. It shows a real dedication to his craft.
And an awareness of the nuances of humor across, different cultures.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then he makes this really interesting decision.
Okay.
He decides he needs to conquer the toughest crowd, Black audiences in Oakland.
Oakland, okay.
It's like he's setting himself up for the ultimate test,
Right.
Oakland's comedy scene is legendary, so it makes sense that he'd want to, prove himself there.
For sure.
But his approach to mastering comedy is really fascinating,
Okay.
He didn't believe in stock jokes or one-size-fits-all sets. He tailored every performance to the specific audience.
Yeah.
Constantly experimenting and evolving his material.
It's almost like a scientific approach to comedy.
Yeah.
Like he's observing, he's taking in the data,
Yeah.
seeing what works, what resonates,
Right.
and constantly refining his craft based on that feedback.
So after 3 years of honing his skills in Oakland,
Oh, 3 years.
he finally felt ready for the big leagues. Hollywood.
Hollywood, here he comes.
It's a journey that speaks to his work ethic and his understanding of the mechanics of humor.
Yeah.
It wasn't about taking the easy route, or following the traditional path. It was about deliberate practice, constant self-improvement,
Right.
and a deep commitment to connecting with his audience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Yeah.
We'll pick up the story in part 2 of our deep dive.
Yeah, we're just getting started, folks.
I'm going to explore the complexities of Katt's philosophy on truth-telling, his personal life beyond the stage, and his sometimes controversial views on the state of modern comedy.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back, diving deeper into this Katt Williams interview.
Yeah, and we left off talking about his really unusual path to comedy, from preaching as a little kid to conquering the Oakland comedy scene.
And that dedication to authenticity
Yeah.
really comes through in how he talks about truth-telling. I mean, for Katt, it's not just about being funny. It's about, exposing secrets, challenging norms, holding people accountable.
Yeah, and he really goes after hypocrisy, especially within the entertainment industry.
Oh, absolutely. And he's not afraid to name names.
No.
He brings up Kevin Hart, suggesting that, Hart's very carefully crafted image of success and positivity might not be the whole story.
Right.
He seems to contrast that with someone like Dave Chappelle, who's known for, pushing boundaries and tackling tougher topics head on.
Right, and it's like he's saying there's a difference between being entertaining and being truly real, even if that means getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he even shares a pretty disturbing encounter he had with Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, wow.
Alleging that Weinstein, propositioned him.
Oh, man.
And it's a powerful example of how, power dynamics can play out even in an industry that's, supposed to be, progressive and forward thinking.
Right. It's supposed to be, the good guys.
And it ties into that whole idea of truth telling, right?
Yeah.
He's not afraid to shine a light on the darker aspects of things, even if it makes people squirm.
It makes you think about that whole blow up with Wanda Sykes.
Oh yeah,
where she kind of blindsided him during that Emmy interview
on live TV,
and it led to this really heated exchange. And Katt clearly sees that as a betrayal.
Yeah,
as someone trying to silence him for speaking his mind.
Right, and you can see how it might feed into his distrust of the industry.
Totally.
Right? This idea that even, people you think are on your side might turn on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to think about how that experience might have shaped, his approach to comedy and his interactions with other comedians.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not all anger and confrontation with Katt.
Not at all.
He also talks about his softer side, his generosity towards people he feels, deserve a helping hand.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions, supporting struggling comedians, even paying for Melora Hardin's Hollywood Walk of Fame star.
You got about that, yeah.
There's a real generosity there that often gets overlooked,
I think you're right, yeah.
He's got this tough confrontational persona on stage, but then you hear about these acts of kindness,
right? And
you see this whole other side of him.
Right, there's a complexity there.
There is.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and he's pretty open about his personal life too.
Yeah,
which is interesting because he's known for being very private about his relationships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He mentions living with multiple women, preferring female companionship over traditional marriage.
Uh-huh.
He even claims that one of his exes tried to claim a spiritual marriage in court to get a part of his earnings.
A spiritual marriage?
A spiritual marriage, yeah.
Wow.
But it definitely aligns with his whole philosophy of challenging societal norms.
Right, doing things his own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he talks about being a devoted father, but also the challenges of, balancing parenthood with his incredibly demanding career.
Sure.
He's constantly on the move, touring, dealing with all the chaos of the entertainment world.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah, and he talks about his struggles with insomnia.
Oh, wow.
And relying on marijuana to sleep and to manage his appetite with his, kind of irregular schedule.
And then, of course, there are the run-ins with the law.
Right.
The arrests, the legal troubles. He frames them as acts of self-defense.
Yeah.
Refusing to back down from authority, living life on his own terms,
You definitely get the sense that he sees himself as an outsider, someone who's constantly battling against the system.
Yeah.
It's almost like his whole life, both on stage and off, is this performance, this challenge to the way things are supposed to be.
So it all begs the question, who is Katt Williams? Is he a comedic genius, a truth teller, a provocateur?
Or is it all an act?
Yeah. Is it a carefully constructed persona?
It's a question that's hard to answer definitively.
For sure.
But what's clear is that he's a fascinating figure.
Absolutely.
Who forces us to confront uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
To question our assumptions about comedy and about life itself.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
He really challenges us.
He does.
To think critically.
Yeah.
And to examine our own beliefs.
And you know what? In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore Katt's take on on the future of comedy, his thoughts on politics, cancel culture, and what it all means for us, the audience.
Sounds good.
All right, so we've really been digging into this Katt Williams interview, and man, the guy has some opinions.
Oh, he does.
Especially about where the world's headed, the future of comedy.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back on sharing his thoughts on politics or the entertainment industry, that's for sure.
Not at all. And one of the things he talks about is Kanye West and the whole cancel culture phenomenon. And what struck me was that he seems to have a lot of empathy for Kanye.
Okay.
But also some frustration with how the whole thing played out.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about the media and society, you know, building Kanye up as this icon, this genius,
right.
and then tearing him down when he starts acting erratically.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy of a kid playing with a gun.
Okay.
But, you know, you wouldn't give a kid a loaded gun and then act surprised when they shoot someone.
Right.
He's suggesting that maybe we shouldn't be surprised when people who are put on a pedestal like Kanye eventually crumble under the pressure.
And he kind of applies that same logic to cancel culture in general.
Yeah.
You know, he brings up examples like Jonathan Majors, the actor, whose career was really derailed by those assault allegations, and comedian Matt Rife, who faced a lot of backlash for jokes that some people found offensive.
Right.
And Katt's point seems to be that often people are condemned without due process. Their careers ruined based on accusations rather than convictions.
It's a critique of the court of public opinion, right? How social media can so quickly turn on someone.
Yeah.
Without a fair trial, without a chance for redemption, you know.
And it resonates with his own experiences, with his arrests and how those were portrayed in the media.
Yeah.
He feels like he was targeted and unfairly vilified, especially for his use of marijuana.
There's a sense that he feels like he's been punished for being different, for not conforming to societal expectations.
Yeah, and that rebellious spirit definitely comes through in his views on comedy.
Oh, for sure.
You know, he rejects the whole idea of a king of comedy,
yeah.
saying, you know, those titles are meaningless and often used to elevate some comedians while pushing others down.
He specifically pushes back on the notion that he should have been the fourth king after Bernie Mac passed away.
All right.
You know, pointing out the lack of respect that he felt the original kings of comedy showed Mac.
Right, and it seems like he sees the whole concept of a comedy king as being, you know, more about ego and hype.
Yeah.
Than about the true essence of stand-up, which for him is about connecting with the audience, making them laugh.
Right, and then he gets into what might be the most thought-provoking part of the interview.
Okay.
His assessment of the future of comedy.
Okay.
He expresses concern that younger generations are losing the ability to appreciate nuanced humor and critical thinking. He partly blames social media and the constant flow of information for that, saying it's shortened attention spans.
Yeah.
And made people more susceptible to superficial entertainment.
And he even worries about the decline of literacy.
Yeah.
Arguing that our reliance on technology is eroding our ability to read, write, and express ourselves effectively.
It's a sobering thought, but also kind of a call to action, right?
It is.
He seems to be challenging us, especially younger generations, to reclaim our attention spans, engage in critical thinking, and find humor in the complexities of life.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, don't settle for easy laughs, you know, dig deeper, question everything, and find the humor and the truth, even when it's uncomfortable.
Katt Williams is definitely a complex figure, full of contradictions and sharp insights.
He is.
Whether you agree with him or not, he forces you to think, to challenge your own assumptions, and to appreciate the power of comedy to hold a mirror up to society.
And that's really what we try to do here on this show, too.
Exactly. You know, we want to dive deep, we want to explore these complex issues, and we want you, the listener, to come along for the ride.
So we encourage you to check out the full interview. Form your own conclusions about this one-of-a-kind comedian.
Yeah, is he a genius, a truth teller, or a provocateur?
Or maybe a little bit of all three?
You decide.
That's for you to decide.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Katt Williams.
Until next time, stay curious and don't be afraid to laugh, even when it hurts a little.